I previously did a repair on the 6 transistor Silvertone transistor radio from approximately 1960. The only problem is, works pretty good, is that the battery compartment, this was designed to take a mercury 9-volt cell, which aren't available anymore, but you can get an alkaline cell, which will work, but they're very expensive, and I don't see the justification of spending 20-30 bucks on a little cell that is going to last very long anyway. So I opted to make a battery box, put in a couple of these little batteries here, which are common. They're called A23 cells. They're 12 volts, and I'm going to make a little battery box for this set, putting 2 of those in parallel with a dropping resistor, and that should give me 9 volts. The battery box will have to be at least 45 millimeters long by approximately 18 wide. This piece of perf board here, I'm going to cut down to size, and that's going to be the base of the battery box. 50 millimeters by 18 millimeters. 45 millimeters long. Turned out to be a little bit on the small side, so I settled for 50 millimeters and 18 wide, which seems to fit perfectly. So that's it, the perf board sitting at the bottom. Now I'm going to attach metal pieces to that, and you'll see what my plans are as they come together. The 50 millimeter would allow the metal pieces that are going to be on either end to push up against the electrodes, the battery terminals, or whatever you want to call those, and create some tension. The battery is 10.17 millimeters in diameter. So in order to stack them on top of each other, they're going to have a fairly tight fit. I'm going to only have 4 millimeters to play with on either side. The battery is 28 millimeters long, and it's got the positive has a piece projecting, and the bottom is indented from the bottom, so I'll have to make a notch sticking up on the negative side and a piece of spring steel or something to hold the battery in place on the positive side. The radio's only, the case without the back cover on is only 25 millimeters, just a little short of 25 millimeters. So I'm going to cut very short. I'm not going to have much room to play with, so each battery is a little bit over 10 millimeters in diameter, so I'll have to allow at least 3 millimeters extra to play with, so it'll be a tight fit. I'm going to have to take that piece of scrap sheet metal there, it's steel, and I'm going to cut it and bend it to those proportions as shown above. I realized that I had it a bit too wide, so I cut the perf board down to 11.86, and the slot that the batteries are going to drop down into, I'm making it approximately that width too, and I'm just going to epoxy that piece onto the perf board instead of using wire. Here I've epoxied the the original piece I cut to the perf board, and I've lined it up with the battery and taken and bent another piece of metal that fits the positive end of the battery. That will be the positive terminal. And I will, once the epoxy is dry, I'll take another piece of metal and I will close off the battery compartment on the other side and notch it so that it makes contact with the negative portion of the batteries. The metal pieces have been glued onto the perf board and they're both solid. And I had randomly cut down that small piece there to 15.42 so it could fit inside the radio. So I'm going to cut the rest of it down to that length too. 15.42 should allow the batteries to sit in the container quite well, but if it needs a little more, I will take more off. But I'm going to cut it and see how it sits in the radio. 15 is still too much, so I'm going to have to take it down to 13. It's just sticking up too high. It ended up that the batteries stacked on top of each other are just too high. It won't allow the back of the radio to go on. This radio is really limited in space. So I'm just going to have to set this battery box up for just one battery and put in the dropping resistor as I planned, and it should be good enough to last for a fairly long while. And the battery is easy to replace, so I'll just leave it like this. I'll add a bit on to this, but this is how it'll sit basically. I've put the piece on the back and I'm going to epoxy it onto the lower metal piece. And I'm just have the battery in there to size it up so it's under a bit of tension so that the battery firmly is on both pieces of metal while they're electrically separated. I put a pool of solder on the bent piece so it makes contact with the recess in the battery, the negative portion of the battery. This is the way the battery box will be. The only thing I haven't done is epoxy the two curved pieces, the one on the bottom of the perf board and one on the top. And I haven't put in the resistor yet. I have to calculate what it's supposed to be, and it will go in between the two notches on the right-hand side there. The only thing I can do now is figure out how much current the radio draws, and it's 14 milliamps at 9 volts. So I'll figure out what size of resistor I need to drop the voltage by 3 volts from 12 volts to 9 volts. Here I've run through the Ohm's law to see what resistor I need to drop the 3 volts at 14 milliamps. So 3 volts over 0.014 amps comes to 214 ohms. The closest resistor I'd have for that would be 220. And I just thought I'd check on the wattage, and it comes out to be about 0.042 watts, so I don't have to worry about, I can use even an 8 watt resistor without any problem. So I'll use what is available. And here I've got it all connected together, and it's gluing. The last piece, the one on the right hand side there, is glued on the bottom of the perf board, and I'm going to put the piece of I put a piece of paper on the bottom to hold the glue in place so it doesn't leak into the radio, and I'm going to put the battery in and see how it works in the radio. There's the battery sitting in the new battery holder with the dropping resistor there, and the radio works quite well. I'll just put it together and demonstrate. Here the radio's working quite nicely with the A23 battery in it. Since the battery capacity is quite low, it won't last very long, but these are cheap batteries, so even although it might only give you 2 or 3 hours of use, it's now a useful radio again.